Well, starting carrier a little bit further in, third phase of this second turn, I did a little bit of movement. I started doing the Japanese move this force found. It looks like a small surface fleet there. I drew the air chit first to see if they attacked me. I probably shouldn't have done both. Either way, nothing came up, but I noticed something that I screwed up. Over here I have a transport group where I drew a carrier for. No, that's not right. I drew as though it was a combat group, so I'm going to redraw the chit for that because that's a serious problem. The fact that's a transport is a big deal. So that's going to be a dummy, and I'm going to drop the carrier back in the cup so I don't lose it, and put these somewhere so I can remember them. Okay, and finishing up phase 3, I did the US actions here. Now, I made things kind of complicated. I was planning on doing a... Oh, I forgot to move my fleet. I kind of want to get further away here, but I don't want to for other reasons. Okay. Let me explain what happened. So, looking at my situation, I was planning on launching a search from this carrier. However, he's too far away to do it. I was planning on doing it so that it would hit at the beginning of this, at the edge of the turn, so that I get that search bonus if anything kind of shows up in the Solomon Islands area. Well, my calculation is I might not, probably wouldn't find Group 3 anyway. I didn't look through the chits to see if Group 3 has already moved. If it has, I would have no chance of finding it. And everything else is kind of far away, where I wouldn't have a shot either. So what I decided to do was launch an airstrike against this carrier group that I found. However, that causes me a problem, because in order to reach there, it's got to land on this carrier. Well, to do that, I had to launch another airstrike at this carrier to get some planes off the deck. And I think these guys... Shit, I can't remember. I think I moved them. I don't know. But I've definitely got to start pulling people down into the landing boxes and remembering stuff. I could shift some of these guys up. Nobody's going to be... Oh, yeah. So in order, I had to transfer, and I've got some planes moving between the carriers. These are all the torpedo bombers. Short-range planes that are going even further from the combat, but you got to do what you got to do. These guys, I am going to lift up at least the SBDs. I've got some time. Once this gets closer, I can decide if I need to clear the deck or something a little bit. I might as well lift these too. Why not have the full flight up there, I think. Well, I don't have room for them all. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We'll leave somebody behind. Alright, and that will put us up to the 4th and final phase, and we'll finish up the turn there. And now the big bad carrier moved, and that causes problems. The big problem is I have to determine an airstrike for it. I read through this, and I'll try to figure out as I go too. The first thing I do is I got to do this carrier attack table to see what it's hitting. Now, I'm pretty sure no matter what works out, it's going to hit that carrier because it probably doesn't have anything else in range. Remember, its range is only 5 this turn. But I guess it's possible I could get a nothing. I wonder if that was supposed to have a U.S. advantage marker. I think it was. Crap. Alright, hold on, I'll go look that up. Yeah, indeed, it does have a US Advantage marker on it. The reason for that is because I found a carrier that I didn't know was a carrier when I found it. I don't know what that's supposed to indicate, but it is going to kind of, it means that their planes probably hadn't found me, I think. Because if I saw lots of planes coming from that area, I would identify that as a more likely carrier, I guess. And that's the only explanation I can have for it. The fact that I was surprised that it was a carrier is an issue. So I have a +3 to the die roll. That's going to help my situation. Maybe I don't get attacked at all. That'd be nice. Turns 1 through 3 range is less than 5 hexes. Yeah. I'm not sure I understand these, but sure. So that gives me +4 more. So that's +7. So there's a good chance it doesn't attack me. Oh, I can hope for that because it's still pretty potent. And it will not attack me. Bonus. Because otherwise, I end up in a kind of weird situation where I have a revealed air strength of 13, but 8 of them are unavailable. So you'd say, well, that should be 5, right? No, that's not how it works. You cross-reference the initial strength versus the points lost, and I would have ended up with a strength of 9. That still sounds kind of big. I would rather not take a carrier strike from, you know, what amounts to a full carrier still. Remember, the full carrier had 8. And it kind of makes sense because maybe they launched some of those planes ahead of time or whatever. Anyway, I am glad not to have to suffer that and glad not to have to look up the rules on it. And that's the end of my chits. Cup's empty, you dump out the last out of them at that point. So now I'll just finish up with whatever little bit I'm doing with the US, which is really just moving my planes around at this point, and then some cleanup with the chits. And that's the end of the turn. I've gotten lucky and gotten out of the first couple of turns without getting hurt. Managed to heavily damage, probably not actually sink a Japanese carrier, and make my way through some of the rolls. However, I'm still at risk. There's still big nasty, at least a light carrier there, and perhaps the remnants of a heavy. The problem with the heavy carrier is he's heavily damaged. He will not be able to launch planes. He's wrecked for the scenario. The only question is, you know, will I get to sink him somehow? I'm not really too concerned about him. I'm worried about the light. I'm also, of course, very worried about all this stuff out here, including this attack on Guadalcanal, which is difficult for me to react to. Until the troops come there, that's not really an issue, so I'm going to focus on the Moresby stuff, and I may lose Guadalcanal because of it, but this scenario is such that I can't lose massively if I can protect Moresby, and that's got to be my main goal. Doing a little bit of tricky stuff with my planes. Hey, I got to recuperate one. And I guess we send this one up and keep going. I want to say one thing, though, that, you know, if I wasn't crazy, basically, I would probably quit this. Because I know that the effort involved in hacking through this is not worth it for what enjoyment I'm going to get out of it. Of course, there's the, hey, you guys are watching, and I am really kind of, this is not the game I would have picked on my own, right? And then there's also the, well, I'm not sure that I really enjoy gaming. In a sense, it's just something I must do. And in that sense, once you start looking at it as kind of a duty, and I really do in a lot of ways. Yes, I enjoy playing some games, but for the most part, it's almost just, this is what I must do. I cannot exist properly. I cannot be comfortable with my existence unless I'm doing this. But happiness comes from other things for me. Anyway, enough philosophy. Let's get back to blowing up ships.